soul garden. Live, love, be.
Good morning. From my smartphone to yours, I'm Castin Love. Capturing on the stepº3 Studios in Costa Mesa, California. This is your Wednesday, Namaste Today. Good morning and namaste, and welcome to Namaste Today. I'm your host and spiritual life coach, Christopher Witecki. This webisode is for Wednesday, March 23rd, 2016, and as of this morning, the Great Human Walk has reached Step 3, Sagittarius. Hello, my friend. Thank you for logging in. So grateful to be of soul service to you. So grateful to be listened to. Honestly, it's so grateful to be listened to. That's I have to say. And we're all maybe a little grateful today. There's a lunar eclipse that hit this morning, a partial lunar eclipse caused by the full moon in Libra opposing the sun. This was a step 3 eclipse, which means this was a basically ignorance breaker. This was a wrecking ball to our lower ego. Most of our lower ego issues deal with defending ourselves or childhood strengths that then get in the way later as an adult. Sometimes it's our egos responding from childhood trauma that builds like this super ego that we have to take down as adult now because it's no longer applicable to our adult life. So I'm certainly witnessing in my clients, friends, and viewers that share that lower ego is what is getting hit. Now, I'll go a little further. It seems that a lot of people experienced the lunar eclipse actually on Sunday. Now, Sunday was a step 0 day, the transition to Aries, which kind of means as soon as the energy went to Aries, whoosh, the whole change was available. And for those who were ready, woof, they kind of had a breakdown. In most cases, the breakdown can be described as a humbling. The universe humbles you over something. And there's a lot of reasons why you need to be humbled. But it's up to you to figure out what it was. And it's up to you to make sure that part of you doesn't grow forward. Because in some ways, this was just a warning because there's so much radical change going in the higher spectrum of Aries. So this was a warning to get the core values right. But before we go into all the details of this, let's actually give today's vibe. Today's vibe is sunny, still with a chance of breakdown. If you haven't experienced a breakdown, your ego will. I'm not trying to predict negativity in your life. This is kind of like a snake shedding its skin. The ego, which is Aries energy, has to die and be reborn. Arieses don't change very much. They completely change, but they don't change when they're current state. You know, they grow, but they stay on this given like agenda. And that's what our egos are. So if we create an issue in early childhood and that agenda is taking us off course now, well, sometimes it's agenda for agenda's sake. Sometimes it's agenda for just the dumbass's desires. And I think this lunar eclipse that we're now experiencing and have gone through is meant to wrecking ball, humble the parts of us that really are junior that we allowed to feel like was going to be a part of us in our maturity. So it's a bit of a wrecking ball. And today we might have a breakdown. Now tomorrow is a step 4 day also. Well, today's a step 3 day with a lunar eclipse. Tomorrow's a step 4 day. So it's almost like 2 breakdown days. It's kind of a compounded fracture, if you will, of the ego. And tomorrow will be, the continuation of what that breakdown is. Keep in mind, on the edge of breakdown is breakthrough. It's an immediate line. It's like as soon as you break down, you're already on the breakthrough. Because once you're on the ground and you start looking up and like, what hit me? You're already figuring out and breaking through. So it's kind of one of those things. So today, sunny with a chance of breakdown. Now my heart has questions to be answered today. Maybe new ideas. Maybe I'm seeking relief. Maybe I'm feeling strong about what I want, but weak about how to get it. These are all the early degrees of Aries. Step 3 is what rules the day. So the sun is at 3 degrees. And that is the degree of the door opening and ignorance breaking. So it's the ignorance breaking degree. I feel delicate, inflamed, maybe that things are unjust, maybe I feel out of balance. At the end of the day, we are feeling a full moon in Libra, so we're extremely sensitive to all the tiniest little things that can tip the scales. So we are oversensitive, and I'm feeling that way. I'm open, which is Venus, to belonging to the new spiritual quest, to seeing the big picture today. I'm thinking about everything my heart is telling me. And Mercury, as of today, is now conjuncting the Sun. So this means that my heart and my mind are aligned. They're on the same team. I'm not questioning my core self anymore. I know what's at the base, and I'm moving forward. We'll talk about that with the Zenden, too, a little bit more on Mercury. I am pushing my new ideas today. It must be easygoing, and I must love doing it. And I'm thinking about the actions that it will take. I'm deciding what I believe to be true. It also must be easygoing, and I must love it. So I'm deciding what I believe is true still. We're not sure. And that's Saturn. Incidentally, this is the final 2 days of Saturn direct, and then it goes retrograde for 6 months. So we're almost done. Your joy quest, should you choose to accept it today, is to release all injustice. Embrace your individuality. That is, in essence, the tug-of-war between the sun and the moon. To release injustice, in other words, just let it go, even if you've been the one scorned, even if you've been the one who has hurt someone. Release the injustices. Do not focus on the injustices. Embrace your individuality, who you are, and you know to be true. And unite the rest of you under that. All right, so I have a lot to talk about today. It's a windy day, so I've had to take many takes, so I don't know if you guys can feel the energy of the change. It's pretty powerful. Today we're going to continue with the 11 Steps of Serious Joy. And again, I'll just remind you that I'm putting this out there because I'm fully expecting everyone to be humbled to some sort of degree in the next 24, 36 hours, if you haven't already. And from that point on, where do we go? Well, we build up. And that's why I want to teach 11 Steps of Serious Joy. So when you rebuild your ego, we can be working right now in real time, in reality, to build an ego over the next 13 days that you can believe in. And the cool thing is if you go through this process with me and you follow these steps, you will have this ego for the rest of the year. That's how it works. So this will help you through the summer, help you through the end of the year, and help you through what we have to come. So invest in yourself. And let's move on now to the second part of the 11 Steps to Serious Joy. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the second installment of the 11 Steps to Serious Joy. This is, in my opinion, the way consciousness unfolds and builds. And if you follow these simple steps, I believe that you can manifest reality. In other words, if you consciously go through these steps in this order, and I mean consciously, that's the thing, it's consciousness, which means you just have to be aware. You can be doing your nails, you can be on the toilet, you can be driving. It's really about if you take time and space to consciously go through these steps, the universe wants to replicate it almost immediately through people, relationships, objects, material wealth, you name it. And a lot of times I find with my clients that they have failed to manifest their life to what they want because they have skipped one of these steps, or they are not good at these steps yet, inexperienced, or wounds from a past life in a step. There's a lot of things that goof up the steps. So today we're going to begin with the invisible step, step 0. And step 0 is probably the most profound discovery of my life. Now, if you look at my chart, my step 0 awareness was at 1. Okay, so the reason I think it's so profound is because clearly I was an idiot at that particular step. The step is protection. It's also boundaries of oneself, where one draws the boundaries. And you probably know too, a lot of people have boundary issues. Step 0 is the difficult step. It is the one that is hardest to do. And who knew, this is what was surprised me, who knew that protection was the first step? Or let's put it this way, who knew that Scorpio was secretly number 1? I know every Scorpio out there is laughing because they always feel like they're number 1. You're not really number 1. You're number 0. You're hiding, okay? But technically you are first, and you are at the gate. I always say Scorpio is the gatekeeper. They are. They come down. Scorpio energy comes down, creates time-space. So let's describe how this 0 works. First of all, if you look at creation myths, all creation myths, almost all of them, they start with darkness and then go to light, okay? Darkness and then there was light, right? This is zero, believe it or not. Zero is the idea in consciousness. So think about the conscious idea that there is of what invisible is. Something invisible, something that is underneath the seams. That's what zero is. Zero is the potential for something, but not something. Think about that. And think about that concept that human race has this idea that they can hold an idea with nothing in it. That's actually a profound idea. And I think that's why people don't get protection ahead of time. So Creator talks about it. It was dark and then it was light. That's basically, that is process of zero. One side of zero is dark, one side of zero is the light. And it is this infinite portal vortex. That's the other thing about zero too, is the actual shape of the glyph that we use to represent zero, because zero is infinity, and that's also the paradox of zero. It is both infinity and not infinity. It is the potential for everything and is also nothing at all, right? Very paradoxical, very powerful when you think about it in those terms. Basically, energy in the universe will move forever unless it hits a step zero boundary. So in the architecture of incarnation, when human beings are creating something in their mind, you must tell the energy when to stop. And according to God, universe, you must tell the energy when to stop before you get started. That's what step zero is. Step zero is the definition of how far we're going to go and when we're going to stop. That's for one thing. The use of boundaries, basically, and coming up with boundaries, represents all of our Neanderthal period on Earth. It represents all of our most primitive stuff. We were learning the hardest way of where the boundary was. And I think humans are learning now to project into the future where that boundary should be, so they avoid having to experience boundary issues in the present. In fact, in my experience as a wizard, if you don't tell the universe to protect you ahead of time, okay, you are susceptible to anyone else's boundaries. So if your boundary consciousness has no instruction, you literally are lacking instruction. And so people with boundary issues who are also lacking instruction, or people who have instruction to cross boundaries, easily cross yours. So in the whole matrix of the collective conscious and how they bounce around, you have to throw out there where the limits are, and the rest of consciousness seems to respect those limits subconsciously. All right? People that, they say they walk in the room before they get there. That person has put a boundary consciousness way far out. They've said, everyone stay away from me. And we see it, we feel it, we know it. Everyone can sense it. That's how step zero energy works. When the consciousness is populated with where the law is, everyone feels it. Now, some dumbasses will still push anyways, right? And have to be taken down. Anything in the first act of consciousness actually deals with boundary placement. So there are 11 steps of serious joy, okay? And you have to envision where your boundaries are for every state of awareness up to 10. And even at 10, you're actually still doing it. So boundary consciousness is necessary in every step you do. Another way to look at this is you have to tell the universe every time you're doing something what you don't want or what the limit is, and be clear on it every time. And you have to be very clear on where the limits are in the first 9 steps. Very, very clear. Most of my clients will operate in these steps with no boundary definition. And it's because they're like, well, I'm willing to do anything. I'm willing to be open. Are you willing to get hurt, burned, this, that? Like, no. I'm like, tell the universe that. No, it's like, don't assume, like, we're down here for creation. Why would the universe, God's not going to blow your hand. No one's going to come in here and adapt your spell real quick. The universe is going to allow you to fail and learn, and boundaries are part of it. So if you're born in the first 11 days of any transit, Scorpio, Taurus, Aries, you name it, you have boundary issues. You are still learning how to manage your boundaries, and that's okay, but you have to be mindful that that's an issue. Anyone born in the midsection, chapter 2 or act 2, or the second decan, as it's called, they have to deal with management of boundaries in the idea of projecting outward. Because when you're an act 2 person and you are born, you have 11 degrees to 19 degrees, you are a soul basically that's learning how to manifest from your heart in your generation. And the boundaries are not just inside. You have to cover everything from 0 to that point, but you have to also think of all the boundaries to manifest for what you're manifesting, where all the boundaries are, your store and the people and the kids and all that stuff. So it's a kind of a double lesson. It just goes up. And for those who are born in the third act or the third decan or chapter 3, however you want to call it, and your degrees are from step 20 to 29, you have 3 dimensions of boundaries to be conscious of. You must be conscious of your base boundaries. You must be conscious of the boundaries that you are working within and to manifest. And a master or a chapter 3 must be conscious of your emotional boundaries. And when I say must be conscious of, I mean you won't manifest unless you are manifesting all 3 dimensions. So a master has to sit for a long time and be thinking about where things go. But when they get it in place, they manifest more powerful, more intense stuff and more profound stuff. So what's interesting about step 0 and the power of 0 is when you're going to manifest something, you want to define where all the boundaries are. I often talk about this as protection, but what I mean by protection is that you've consciously told the universe, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Now that's what a worrying mother is doing when she's up at night worrying. She's basically telling the universe over and over and over what she doesn't want to happen, and it works. The one night that she doesn't do it, that's when the kid gets hurt, right? Like, that's how it works, because she wasn't populating for the child. And a lot of parents do populate for the child, and yes, you can do that. You can populate conscious for the child. But because step 0 is our definition, step 0 is our ability to change ourselves. So if you want to become something else, you have the conscious part of changing is, how do the boundaries change here? What are the new boundaries? And it's actually the boundary change, the step 0 change, that maps out the entire transformation. So the alchemist that can turn lead into gold is really changing the boundaries of these elements, the edges. And by changing and controlling the edges, you control the reality. The other thing I want to point out before I wrap this is that boundaries are directly proportionate to your ability of wealth. And this comes from the consciousness of an astrological chart where the 2nd and 8th house oppose each other, okay? That means that boundaries is across from manifestation, and they work directly together. We know this with supply and demand. If you put a big wall up around a subdivision, it's worth more. Why? There's a bigger boundary between you and it. The farther the boundary between you and an object, the more you will perceive that object as valuable. This is a subconscious notion built into the architecture of incarnation, and it has to do with actually the relationship between 0 and 1. And we'll talk about that much farther down, but basically that's an interesting relationship. So a lot of times people who have manifestation of wealth issues, have issues getting enough money, all these things, it's all a boundary problem they have. It's all a boundary problem. They think they have to work harder, blah, blah, blah. No, it's that you have to define more, be more specific. And in some like Republican ways of thinking about it, people would say, oh, we need more boundaries and more penny pinching and saving more money. Yes, that's one part too, but also just spending too much time thinking about something that won't manifest is a boundary issue. That conscious energy could be, time and space could be going into something valuable, but it's not. So where we spend our time and space, and that's what step 0 really is, time and space, that's the boundary. How much time, how much space. The more time and space you give something, the more valuable it will be. Translating into manifestation, a little bit different of a trick, but still it applies. So, protection of oneself and definition of reality, step 0 is the first step. You must, before you do anything, tell the universe where this stops. You must, before anything, tell the universe what can come in and what cannot come in that step 0 circle. And as you move through the universe of physical reality, you must continually imagine this tiny separation between you and the universe. Yes, we are all one, but not in this dimension. Okay? We'll talk more about it, just because we have a conscious wall there. All right, this wraps up step 0. I hope it has been useful to you. I look forward to giving you the next step tomorrow, which is step 1 I love. And welcome to the Zen Den. Let's take 3 breaths together, my friends. And as always, I'm casting a glow of royal blue light around me and inviting you in. Inside, I have golden light to recharge your heart. I think golden light is very powerful to focus on, especially when you're working with the heart. It's a powerful healing color. So let's take 3 breaths. Okay, and I have an affirmation for you. I stand by my heart today. Any belief is negotiable. I stand by my heart today, but any belief is negotiable. And that's setting you up for step 3 and the core of your heart. And as you'll learn if you watch 11 Steps to Serious Joy, that our heart comes before beliefs in the architecture of incarnation. So whenever you're working on one state of awareness, you can stand back in an awareness that's in a lower step as strength to be there for you. Now, in the case of belief, it's so simple. We can't believe something our heart's not behind. And so if we're on a wrong path of belief or we're learning or opening up from ignorance, then stepping back into our heart allows us to be flexible about what we believe, because our heart will know when it's true. All right. So I will just say now, before we go on the overhead protector, that the planet that Spirit brought up was Mercury. And a lot of people are playing telepathy games with me out there and seeing if you hear the same planet. I've asked my guides, please share with everybody. Of course they are, and they know that anyways. But a lot of people are actually getting it. So the planet was Mercury. So let's take a look at the planets and examine what we have with the eclipse here. Now today, the Sun and Mercury both are at step 3, Aries. Now what that means is that we're in the focus of I believe. And because the mind has caught up to the Sun here, because they're together, our beliefs can align with our heart and Mercury specifically together. So we can bring it together. We can bring our mind together, we can bring our beliefs together, and it can go with our ego behind. That's basically the programming potential of the eclipse right there. Now, just a day before, Mercury was not conjuncting the Sun, so our mind was off wandering places. Everyone's going to feel maybe a little shattered, but you're going to feel kind of consolidated inside. Your mind isn't fighting, your mind will be on your side. And what's interesting about consciousness is, from this point forward, thoughts go, we think forward into the future. So as Mercury passes the Sun, we now start thinking towards our future. Now you may say, oh, that's springtime. Well, no, that I think is, you can plan literally by plotting where Mercury is at that point. Now, directly across the way is the full moon, and that's what a full moon is. It's a tug-of-war, basically, with the Earth in the center. And so we get pulled. It's a tug-of-war. On the one hand, our emotions pull us in one direction with one state of awareness as most important. So today, we were pulled towards Libra, with trust and fairness being the most important thing. This is sometimes hard to see or feel. I mean, unless you've been literally stolen from, or someone's cheated on you, or something intense has happened, you may not actually feel this part of it. But what it does do is tug on our hearts, right? And in this case, not just our hearts, but our minds at the very same time, tugs on our heart, mind, and we as a result have a change. That's what I call the wrecking ball. Now, tomorrow, step 4 rules a day, which means we will have like another chapter of the breakdown. The first chapter was ignorance being broken at step 3. The second chapter is realizing where we now belong as a result of the change of belief. So, oh my gosh, I was so wrong about this. And then, well, that means this. Right? Okay, so it's a couple, 2-3 days of us shifting and changing. As we do, come back here to the moon. As we do, the moon is approaching Black Lilith. So as we start to get what we believe, and as we start to get where we belong, we're releasing fears. So it's kind of like, oh no, okay, I'm getting close to it. And honestly, once we pass Black Lilith, once our feelings pass Black Lilith, we will have processed it, and hopefully the fears will be gone. That's the whole point of it. Now, Mars is adding a lot of pressure, too, just to intellect. Mars is at step 5, and so that makes people very, first of all, thoughts are aggressive. It's a little harder to calm down our thinking process right now. And also, it's causing a lot of square to some primary energies. So recognize that your mind is a little overcharged, even though it's doing work here, and that you kind of need to give it a little break, which means to, literally turn it off. Even going to a movie kind of gives your mind a break. Venus. Venus is at step 14. I'm going to try to start drawing prettier circles. I get into post, I'm like, you're so messy. Step 14 is I love, I belong, and that means I think. So we're open to two different spiritual paths right now with Venus at this degree. And that may mean that we're looking at two different ways of opening up to the universe. And, a lot of times opening up comes under the umbrella of, I'm going to try. Okay, so it's like, I'm going to try yoga. Okay, you're opening up to yoga. So just to translate the spiritual, I'm going to try this. I'm going to open up to that. Well, you are probably pondering something you want to open up to or not open up to. And it comes down to where you feel like you belong, this 4, okay? I think we don't get to this 4 until tomorrow, or at least until we change beliefs in this 24-hour period. So what I'm saying, folks, is be patient with this process. Because it's Aries, it makes us feel not strong, it makes us feel vulnerable, it makes anger come up, but it's going to take time, at least 3 days, says Sensei, to get into the new shift and onto the new spring of what our new ego is. All right. So today, for the eye candy, for my loyal subscribers, who I do appreciate so much, I'm going to be putting out there what I believe you should be protecting, step 0, after this eclipse. So we had an eclipse, we're moving into step 0, I protect. I'm going to outline, hey, I think you should protect this and this to hold space, and we'll be talking about that all spring. Also, a reminder that I have birthday calls and Secrets of Birthdays reports, both available on my website, and a new About section where you can learn how to submit your materials to me and tell me about you as well, and I'll tell you about me under About. All right, my friends, I'll see you in 24 hours with more. Remember, I love you, and live, love, be.